Hey everyone, Chapter 15 of The Mandalorian, titled The Believer, did a great job of providing compelling character development, plot advancement, and more. But before we continue, here is your spoiler warning. So if you've not seen the episode, go do that. The episode opens on the Carthon chop fields controlled by the New Republic, where prisoners carry out their sentences through labor. Scrapyards like these often appeared, especially after wars. The work was a combination of dismantling wrecked ships and salvaging parts that could be reused. Mayfeld is carrying out his sentence for his role in the prison break from Season 1. It was important for Din and the crew to recruit Mayfeld because he had been an Imperial. This meant that he knew the right protocols and clearances they would need in order to find Moff Gideon's location. I loved when Cara Dune leads him back to Slave One and Mayfeld jumps at the sight of Boba thinking it's Mando, which, by the way, I really love Boba's armor redesign. It's just fresh enough to show the progression of Boba's character, but it maintains the iconic, familiar look of Boba Fett. Mayfeld tells them that they need to go to Morak in order to access a terminal that will give them what they need. The crew arrives on Morak and plots their way into the Imperial facility. They're limited in who they can send with Mayfeld, as the face scanners used by the terminal utilizes the databases of the ISB, or the Imperial Security Bureau. Cara Dune, being a Marshal of the New Republic, would be recognized, as well as Fennec, who is wanted by the ISB. Boba makes a comment about how, well, they'd recognize his face, meaning they would recognize the face of a clone trooper. Now, side note, at this point there are no clones in the Imperial Army anymore. This moment pushes one of the subplots in Din's development through this season. He volunteers to go with, but Mayfeld tells him that he won't be able to go looking like a Mandalorian, or at least he wouldn't be able to explain that. The work around this is that Mando ends up stealing Stormtrooper armor and basically just putting a different helmet on rather than taking off his and revealing his face. But it's hinted that he's going to do that, and that whole season we've been getting hints that Mando would remove his helmet. So shortly after commandeering the tank full of Rhydonium, Mayfeld has a conversation with Din. Well, he mostly just talks at Din. But I think this conversation helps us understand that Mayfeld is the believer the episode is titled after. He tells Din that people from Mandalore and people from Alderaan both have their beliefs, but either way, it doesn't matter because both planets don't exist anymore. Quick side note, Alderaan literally does not exist anymore because it was blown up by the first Death Star 9 years earlier. But as for Mandalore, the planet is still there as far as we know, but it's been decimated by the Empire. So hopefully Bo-Katan's story will help us understand the specifics of Mandalore right now. So it's pretty clear that Mayfeld has a pretty cynical outlook on the galaxy, or as he says, he's a realist. He makes a comment as they pass through a local village. To the villagers, Empire or New Republic, it doesn't really matter who's in charge. And in fact, throughout the galaxy, it doesn't matter who's in charge. There will always be somebody ruling and somebody who is being ruled. At the end of the day, Mayfeld does not believe that either of the two warring factions are doing any good. While en route to the mining facility, the bulk of the episode's action takes place. Along the way, pirates attempt to blow up the barely stable fuel. We don't fully know why the pirates are doing this, but it seems to be a reoccurring issue for these Imperials. Din is able to fight many of them off despite his inferior plastoid stormtrooper armor crumbling. It's a tumultuous journey, but the two are ultimately saved by support from TIE fighters and a mix of stormtroopers and shore troopers. These shore troopers, they should be familiar to you if you saw Rogue One, as they were the primary ground soldiers defending Scarif from the rebels. They wore distinct armor that was specifically fit for warmer, more humid environments. The Imperials have no idea that Din and Mayfeld are not really Imperials. They only see two hero tank drivers who were the only ones to complete a Rhydonium delivery. This scene really reminded me of Rebels celebrating a victory that was against all odds, kind of had that vibe. But anyways, it's almost as if the show is trying to reaffirm Mayfeld's belief that there is no difference between the New Republic and Empire. Now, is that true? No, but we seem to kind of get that vibe here in this scene. Din and Mayfeld make their way to the officers' mess hall where they see the terminal they need to access. Mayfeld makes his way into the mess hall but recognizes an officer he served under. And initially he tells Din that he can't do it because that officer might recognize him. But later we find out that this officer triggers some horrible memories for Mayfeld. The culmination of a season's worth of hinting at Mando taking his helmet off comes to fruition in this moment. At the terminal, Din makes the decision to remove his helmet in front of people for the first time. Just like Mayfeld said, everyone wants to survive, and when they get desperate, their beliefs change. For Din, he's desperate to get Grogu back, and this seems to be the only way that he can do that. Din is successful in getting the coordinates to Gideon's ship, but he's stopped by the officer that Mayfeld had pointed out, Valen Hess, and he gets trapped in a conversation about Imperial procedures that Din has no idea about, so Mayfeld quickly steps in to smooth talk them out of the mess, but Valen Hess demands that they have a drink with him. Now, this conversation leads to something that helps us really understand Mayfeld. We find out that he served under Valen Hess during Operation Cinder. Operation Cinder was a contingency plan by Palpatine to ensure that the Empire and its enemies did not outlive him. This operation took place only weeks after the Battle of Endor in The Return of the Jedi, and it was ultimately thwarted by the New Republic. However, the operation still managed to claim many casualties, with Imperial officers like Valen Hess making decisions that resulted in the deaths of many citizens and Imperials alike. Operation Cinder is examined in the Aftermath book trilogy, and it can be experienced in the story mode of Battlefront 2 if you're interested in more of that. All of the horrible memories of Cinder swell in Mayfeld as they share a drink with the old officer. Mayfeld draws his blaster and kills Valen Hess somewhat impulsively. From there, the two escape the facility by scaling the walls to the roof, and if it weren't for the sniper duo of Cara Dune and Fennec Shand, the two would have had a tough time making it to the roof, where Boba flies Slave One in to pick them up. Once aboard Slave One, Mayfeld uses a rifle to pull off an impressive long-distance shot that blows up the Rhydonium they delivered, therefore destroying any potential the Empire has to do harm with it, as Valen Hess had hinted at. Immediately, two TIE fighters chase Slave One, but the chase is ended quickly when Boba releases a seismic charge, the same weapon his father Jango used to get rid of Obi-Wan in Attack of the Clones. As the crew regroups outside Slave One, Cara Dune declares that Mayfeld had died in the Rhydonium explosion. Okay, obviously that isn't what happened, but this allows Mayfeld to walk away a free man. Last week, I was skeptical of the reintroduction to Mayfeld's character. I didn't care for him in the first season, but I think that's why this episode worked. We got to see Mayfeld go from a skeptic who had experienced the evil of the Empire and therefore didn't believe in anything. So I've seen a lot of different interpretations to what the episode's title, The Believer, referred to, and I think it refers to Mayfeld believing that people can make a difference in the galaxy. I think this goes in line with the theme of this season especially. We've met a whole cast of characters who are each doing their individual part to fight evil in the galaxy. We don't really see the big factions like the Empire or even the New Republic doing much in the way of improving the galaxy. But actions of people like Cobb Vanth, Bo-Katan, even Frog Lady have shown us that the change in the galaxy comes from individuals. Mayfeld got to experience this in his own way during the episode, and therefore I think he became a believer that people and their beliefs and their actions can make a difference. But if you interpreted this differently, please let me know in the comments below. The episode ends with Din contacting Moff Gideon directly and saying the same line Gideon said in Season 1 to Din about Grogu. He means more to me than you will ever know. Not only are these fighting words, but it's confirmation that we all have begun to expect. Din sees Grogu as a son, and his only goal is to get him back. Not because he's honor-bound by the Mandalorian creed, but because he loves him. So good. This episode was the calm before the storm. I think next week Mando's coming for Gideon, and honestly, I think there's even a bit of fear in Gideon's eyes when he watched Mando's message. I can't wait to see how the season ends. Overall, I think Chapter 15 did a great job of setting up the finale while developing Din's character. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. As always, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and may the Force be with you.